Okay.
Welcome to my very first podcast. I think I'm going to call it How to Become a Wizard. Here with me, I have my guest, Lucas Axel Reed. He's a very old friend of mine. We've known each other almost 10 years. I think it's 10 years next year, actually, that we've been friends for. And we've done a lot of work together, a lot of film work together, a lot of photography work together, and generally just had pleasant activities with one another. Not like that, though.
No, you're right, yeah, pleasant.
Yeah, they weren't pleasant. Some video footage of it. So we're here just to talk about well, obviously the nature of this podcast is how to be wise and learning from other people exactly what that means, and learning little snippets and trying to adjust, I guess, me personally, adjust my worldview so that I can incorporate a plethora of ideas and concepts and all this stuff to my own person. And I think Lucas is going to try and help me with that a little bit. So, your worldview is a bit unusual, isn't it? Do you want to tell me a bit about?
Okay, sure.
Kind of what makes you tick?
What makes me tick?
Other than your Tourette's.
So, I guess a bit of backstory on me. 2 or so years ago, I was settled down. I had a house, cats. I was lined up to get married, and then that all kind of went kaput for various reasons. But I was left in a place where all my plans for the future had kind of disappeared. I didn't really know what I was doing with my life, what I wanted from life. But I knew that what I had tried wasn't working for me. I knew that being settled down in one place wasn't working. I knew that working a 9-to-5 job, having a house, the traditional tick boxes of life weren't working for me. So after a year of kind of bumming around, living at various people's houses, trying to figure things out, I got to a point where I was going to put a deposit down on an apartment. And at this point I was living out of 2 backpacks, one of which was just film gear. And I just realised there was 0 point paying out $500 in rent, $100 in water, gas, electric, internet, all these things that you pay for.
Yeah.
For a box to hold stuff that I didn't need it for. It was a couple of backpacks. There was no point in having an apartment. So kind of from that point, I switched things around. And that's when I decided I was going to build out a van to live in, with the intention of being on the road full time. And kind of my whole attitude, approach to life has shifted since then. The more I've gotten into that sort of lifestyle and the idea of working for myself, travelling, working for my own hours, has kind of shifted the way I look at the world and what I see as important in the world.
So what is that shift, essentially? Like what was it before, where you had this kind of, I guess, stability? You had a place that you could call home.
Mm-hmm.
There was a solid place. There was essentially, I mean, within the system, I guess there's safety nets and things like this.
Yeah.
And then how did your perspective change, like you just said, to one where none of those things were present and having that kind of aloofness, I guess. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah. So I think it was a slow transition. It wasn't as though I woke up one day and then everything was different.
No epiphany moment.
It wasn't an epiphany. It was something that sort of started as a seed and grew over the year, and even now it's still something I'm adapting to. It's not like I've gone from being comfortable living in a house with a job to being completely comfortable having none of that. It's still something that's very scary. It's something that can be a real challenge. I think for me it's been a process of learning what I don't want bit by bit, rather than learning what I do want, and it's just trial and error. Even at the moment, we were talking before the podcast, my ideas keep shifting, and as things happen in life, things have shifted. The idea was to live in Europe in the van originally, but that's shifted. I ended up staying in the UK, and now I could well be getting rid of the van, travelling without it. I could be staying in the UK for a bit. I think the concept for me is just about freedom to do what I want and be where I want, on my terms, and I think that's been the biggest shift.
Yeah.
been.
So having that independence, not just from like it's in terms of like in terms of being an adult in a system, but also having independence from that system almost, I guess.
Yeah.
Not being
it's just
accountable
exactly
to councils or water suppliers or any of this
yeah,
kind of thing.
and it's about that self-ownership of it as well.
Yeah.
I'm not reliant on anyone for anything. You know, my van's kitted out with solar power, with gas. Everything is down to me to supply. I'm not reliant on someone to supply me with anything. I've got my home that I built. I can park where I want. Because of the job I do as well, I can work the hours I want. I can work as much or as little as I want.
Yeah.
The success of my work is based on how much work I put into it. There's no turn up, get paid. You know, I can't coast by, but I also am not limited by my job.
Yeah.
Everything in my life is down to how much am I going to put into it.
Yeah, there's no contract to keep it saying
No.
you have to work for us for 3 years and that. But is that not quite a lot of responsibility?
Yeah. That's
like I'd be worried about that responsibility and not having any. It almost is like quite a vulnerable position, isn't it?
It is and it isn't. That's definitely the flip side of it. Is working for yourself and living the kind of life I do can be scary because you can lose it all as well. But there's definitely more control. I think there's an illusion that if you work in an office or you work whatever normal job and you have a house, you're secure. But you can lose your house, you can lose your job just as easily.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily any more secure in the position that I'm in, but I am more in control of it. And I think along with my kind of lifestyle comes the attitude of if it all goes, if I lose everything, I can start again from scratch because I've built it once, I can build it again. I think, again, it comes back to that independence that you build through it.
That sounds like quite a liberating perspective to have on the world.
Yeah, I think it is.
Liberating not just kind of in a like almost spiritual sense, but also in like an actual literal sense. Like you are liberated from the control and from I think the one thing that I see as a massive benefit is the idea like it's almost like you can't if you're like that you almost can't get into too much debt with people. I think that's one of the biggest things. If you have like a mortgage, if you have a lot of people get loans for their weddings now, and they're massive loans. They're like £10,000, £20,000. You know, mortgages are obviously like between what now these days like 100,000 to 150,000, maybe more, 200,000.
Crazy interest, impossible to get in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. You know, housing is quite expensive at the moment. So all this, and a lot of people I don't think see mortgage as debt. That's the one thing I see it as is like it's a debt that you're repaying. It's like a financing, really, isn't it? And I guess with this kind of lifestyle, that is something that is easy to avoid in a lot of ways.
I think it's easy to avoid, but I don't know if that comes from the lifestyle. But I guess the attitude that leads to the lifestyle.
Right. Yeah.
For me, minimalism is a big part of my life, and I'm always looking at how I can scale down to my means rather than trying to work more or earn more to keep scaling up. For me, it's all about cutting down and
the opposite to me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, definitely the opposite to you in a few ways. But it's something that I preach to everyone, and my partner at the moment actually has really seen how it can snowball. In that you start getting rid of things that you don't need, and then before you know it, you're looking for more stuff to get rid of because there is a liberation in not having anything. There's nothing to lose. There's no fear, which I think is such a big part of everyone's life is fear of losing your job, losing your home, losing your money, losing your things. For me, the dream really is to have nothing to lose. If I could have, the things that I own are minimal clothing and then the equipment that I need for my work. If I could get rid of the equipment I needed for my work, great, I'd have even less to lose. Doesn't work that way, but I think that is definitely... I think it's a shift that's happening a bit in society anyway. I think the previous generations have been very pushed. You have to get a house, you have to fill your house with stuff and have an expensive car. In the current economy, that's not... people of our generation don't expect to ever own a house. I don't think we're ever going to be able to afford it. And so evolving. We're looking at other things. The van life, the thing I do, is becoming more and more popular because it's affordable.
Yeah,
and
I've noticed that.
people are seeing the benefits of having less.
It's okay. Carry on. Would you? So I find that quite interesting. The thing about loss and the thing about the fear of loss. Would you say that your current kind of philosophy on life is a result of having lost the stability and the stability, the
kind of
the home, all that stuff, because that was lost relatively quickly. Do you think that was what led to this kind of almost swing in the other direction of the pendulum
It definitely shifted the way I looked at what I needed from life.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that it was the jumping off point for the minimalism. That's always been a thing for me. I've never been too worried about losing things. Losing the house, losing all my stuff, that didn't affect me. I was quite happy to walk away with very little. That was actually better for me than holding on to a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But I do think that idea of having the house and that being the goal to settle down, I think I'm now in the opposite direction, that settling down is not what I want to be doing.
Yeah.
I think the fear aspect of it is definitely came from that. Or at least it's something that's progressed as time's gone on from that, is becoming less and less scared of losing anything. If I was to lose everything I own tomorrow, for me it's like, okay, great, I will pick up whatever job I can and I'll just carry on. I no longer have a panic of what would I do if everything went?
Yeah. And that's something definitely that I see in you, and I kind of value in you, is that kind of like ability to just kind of go, okay, well, this is what I need to do, that's what I'm going to do, and then you kind of just go for it. Do you know what I mean? So right then, you needed to swat that flight now. So do you know what I mean? Like, so when you don't mind doing the crappiest job you need to do in order to get back to being at point zero.
Yeah.
If you get into a minus, do you know what I mean?
In the example of recently, obviously I went full-time working in the video industry just over a year and a half ago, and that flopped. Yeah. And then at the beginning of this year I had to pick up a cleaning job. Yeah. But I just accept that things fall as they fall, and you just do whatever it takes and just start again.
Yeah, and like I think that's a humble approach to it. Like, I think that there's a lot of pride in society at the moment, and not necessarily good pride either. Like, you know, so you've got like people being proud of their identities and who they are and stuff, and that's all well and good. But with pride, with too much pride, comes entitlement and people that are going, oh, that job is beneath me.
Yeah,
and they get themselves into situations, because the system makes it that way, where they don't have enough money to pay for things, but they won't take the jobs they need to, the crap jobs, to get to where they need to get.
There's a toxicity to it. There's people.
I'm above it.
Yeah,
but clearly you're not, because you know, people need to do that stuff. You know?
But again, I think that comes from the fear. It's fear of what people are going to think of me if I do this job. What people are going to think of me if I have to give up my house. It's people don't want to make sacrifices because it destroys their self-image, and it's that fear of not being who they project themselves to be. I think ego is just such a huge part of that, and people's buying into this I have to be this because I'm this, and I think that's definitely something I've let go of more in the last couple of years.
It's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, beating the ego is a really difficult thing. I've listened to a lot of podcasts on ego. And letting go of that voice that tells you should be this, you should be that. And it just wants to cling to everything. You know, if you've done something for a while, you have to keep doing it because that's who you are, that's what you do. Something that I try to encourage people is that it doesn't matter if you've invested 5, 10, 20 years into something, if you've worked a job, if you've completed a degree, done a master's. You can finish your master's and the next day go off and get a job completely unrelated. You haven't lost something. you're
No,
not,
you're always gaining something.
no,
Yeah.
you've gained whatever you've gained in that. Maybe that master's led you to the decision to do this other job, but people get very stuck in this idea that they are who they are.
The narrow path perspective. They don't want to go on out into the wilderness and explore a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, interesting. I was thinking about. I watched Hereditary recently. Just going back a little bit to something you said earlier about us, like kind of what the previous generations have pushed onto us, and the housing crisis, which is undoubtedly caused by the decisions made by our parents and our grandparents, and other things like the way the NHS has gone, Brexit. All of this is as a result of what our parents have, our parents' decision. And this film is it's called Hereditary. You've heard of?
I've
heard a horror film that's come out recently. It's and it's basically that. It's about inheriting something. In the film, it's not sure. Like it seems to be mental health issues, but there's loads of horror stuff that happens. But it's like a debate whether that's hallucinations and stuff like that. But it's interesting. Like they always say that when you look at horror films over the grand scheme of things, they reflect the fears of the society that they're in.
Yeah, like the old monster movies and the atomic war.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and what's really interesting is there's a lot of horror films out at the moment that are talking about like parental relationships and what the children are inheriting from their families. There's a lot of them, and it's really interesting that is. I think that's a big thing about our generation at the moment is we're inheriting quite a lot of negativity from our parents because like the baby boomers they were in quite a post World War II there was quite a lot of money, there's lots of houses, all this stuff, and then that's all changed and all the expectations and stuff of that kind of lifestyle have been put onto us even though it's not possible.
No, and I think I should say there's not only from our parents but from the generation above, it is a very big divide, I think, between those that grew up in a world where you could go into anywhere, you could get a job, you had a lot of security, and I think fear as such was less. And I think our generation is viewed as this entitled, self-absorbed kind of generation, but then I think that's a reflection of the fear. We escape because life is freaking scary at the moment. There isn't a lot of security for our generation, and so we lose ourselves in Instagram and the ego because we need to feed something. Like life is scary, we can't get jobs, we can't get houses, we need something to feel secure, and so I think this is where a lot of the addiction to social media comes from.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
But then that's where we get this huge divide of the people that grew up and had it easier somewhat, thinking, oh, well, this generation's lazy and they've got this and that, and it's not. We're just freaking terrified of what's coming. Yeah. But again, that's why I think there's this shift happening, and we're learning how to live in this world that doesn't give handouts.
I think that's definitely something I've never expected anything from the government, for instance, money wise. I mean, obviously I got a loan for my degree and I got a loan from a bank for my masters, but like there was never an expectation to have that. I never expected to go to university with that. I'm lucky I have, and I'm glad I have. But in terms of anything else, like I don't think I'd even bother claiming benefits if I needed to, just because it's a complex process that you get stuck in.
Yeah, I mean, I was in that process for a while of where I needed to claim benefits for a little while. And it was so difficult that I didn't bother doing it after a while. I lived on rice and ketchup, and that was just it.
I remember you doing that, actually, rice and ketchup.
Good times. But yeah, I think with the evolution of technology and the way that things are for our generation, things are shifting in a big way, more towards the kind of thing I'm doing. I think it's becoming less and less of a niche. You see so many entrepreneurs and just self-employed people are coming out of offices, going and setting up in Thailand or wherever. That's such a huge thing now over in Asia. You get all the white guys huddled over their laptops in these communal areas, and it's about that freedom. You're more secure doing something like that than you are trusting a company that could
Yeah.
go bust or that might just let you go because there's a million other people applying for the same job.
Exactly, and also, interestingly, the advent of social media has actually made the world a lot smaller in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you need to be in the same country in order to do the work.
No,
Like with your job, if you're an editor, you could literally just you could go anywhere in the world and have direct contact with people, as long as you have a good internet connection.
And where doesn't now?
It literally, I mean, even if the place you go to doesn't, you can carry around like a dongle and stuff and have a decent internet connection.
Yeah,
It's
you can get by. I mean, obviously I've just been in Mauritius and the internet is far from good out there, but I was working out there and in the French Alps. I've worked up there in the mountains, again, not the most ideal place to connect with people, but
so it was not very
you can definitely make it
these
work.
days. And I think that when the government realised that, and realised that if they continue to kind of make decisions that are going to essentially oppress young people, that there's going to be some sort of exodus, or some sort of people are going to leave and try and find work somewhere else, or they're going to...
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, they're not going to... The government is not going to be supported in those decisions.
I mean...
They're not at the moment.
If we get into, Brexit and that kind of thing, it just... Who's happy about that? Other than,
Old people, that's the thing.
Old people and racists.
Yeah, so...
that's the majority.
That's really telling for me, is when the statistics come out on who voted, and they were quite accurate, it was mainly people above 50. And it's the people above 50 that have made very big decisions for our generation that are going to affect us.
Mm-hmm.
And the freedom of movement, that is a massive issue for... I'm sure that's a big reason why a lot of us... voted to stay in, is because we want to have the freedom to move across the countries, and we see the benefit of that, not just for our country but also for other countries to be able to move. And I
think for our generation, borders just aren't so much
as an issue. They're not.
We don't care. We're quite happy to exchange with everyone. I think, like I said, the world is much smaller, and for our generation, we don't see this country, that country. It's like, well, no, it's just the world. It's just people. That is an old, dead idea. But unfortunately, the people in power have been
the majority decision makers.
Majority of decision makers, don't quite agree with this.
Yeah. So it's it's 4:30. So shall we take a brief intermission?
Let's take a brief intermission.
We're going to have a brief intermission. We're going to grab a drink because I'm thirsty. I'm really thirsty. And then we'll come back to this very interesting discussion about everything. Welcome back. Why'd you just laugh at me?
Because you do that, because you go, welcome back, you're so robotic.
Welcome back.
Oh god, I'm sweaty. Okay.
I'm sweaty as well. It's a sweaty day.
It's a sweaty day.
It's one of them days. Super sweaty. Okay, so welcome back to How to Become a Wizard.
How to Become a Wizard.
So,
or a weirdo that lives in a van.
Well, I'm a wizard and you're a shaman. Or, no, you're a digital nomad.
Digital nomad. Okay.
Can you tell me what that means, actually?
Okay, yeah, here we go.
This is what we're on now, digital nomad.
Okay, yeah, that's easier than the questions we were going to ask. I say that.
Well, I'm still going to ask that question.
I mean, digital nomad really is just anyone that is nomadic and so does not live in a set place and gets their income from a digital source. So that can be coders, that could be videographers like me, photographers, bloggers, anything like that.
Right.
Which is the basic definition.
So, in terms of do most digital nomads have the same kind of life philosophy about freedom and the kind of the fear of loss that we were just talking about in the first half? Is that a commonplace theme amongst those people?
I don't know that is necessarily common. I think the only thing that's common to everyone in it is this desire to work on their own terms. I think the movement into digital nomadism is people's way of saying, there's no need to go into an office, there's no need to work 9 to 5 anymore.
Yeah.
The workplace is evolving. But after that, I think everyone has their own reasons for it. Everyone has different attitudes. You've got people that are rich, people that are poor, people that do it because they want to travel, people that do it because it works for their lifestyle. I think you could talk to 10 people that have that kind of lifestyle and get 10 completely different worldviews.
So it's not like it's not just put on the foundations of this kind of concept of...
I don't think so. I think maybe
Okay.
initially, but again, I think the shift to that is in response to the state of the world,
Yeah.
which means you've got people of all kinds doing it now. It's not just the weird hippie dudes that want to do that, or not just the entrepreneurs. It's everyone you can imagine that is embracing a different kind of lifestyle.
Mm. And just a little bit of a segue. I feel like a lot of your influence comes from YouTubers that have that kind of lifestyle, and also people that don't necessarily have that kind of lifestyle, but also have like philosophies that meet it to a certain extent. People like Casey Neistat, for instance, has played a big role in you forming your opinions of the world. Would you agree with that?
Fair.
So how have they, and if there's how have they, and is there anyone in particular who has like kind of really influenced you to have the kind of worldview you have in the fallout of you losing your stable life, basically?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think for me, and again for most people of our generation, our influences are people on YouTube. Slightly before that would have been bloggers. You know, you've got, again, because you said the internet makes the world a smaller place.
Yeah.
That is where we all see our inspiration nowadays. And for me, I think big inspirations are people like Casey Neistat, and people with that same attitude, which is very, I don't want to say counterculture, because it's almost taking over at this point, but it's just this idea of being able to do things for yourself. And I mean, to use him as an example, Casey Neistat isn't doing what I'm doing. He's not a nomad. He's not doing that. He is very rich, and he lives, you know, in a nice apartment in New York. But his
has
attitude,
a lot of stuff as well.
he has a lot of stuff. But it's that core value of, this is what I want to do it, and I'm going to do it my way.
And I guess in that sense, you're right in saying it's not counterculture, because it's almost a culture. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's almost like you just aren't allowing the culture to influence your behaviour. You're just literally doing what you want to do as an individual.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
For it to be counterculture, you'd have to be going against the culture, almost like against the culture.
Which,
but
I
you're
mean,
more just saying like, no, I'm just removing myself from it.
I guess, but I mean, I think 10, 15, 20 years ago, that kind of lifestyle would be seen as counterculture.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was very rigid. You know, that was reserved for the hippies and the weirdos. You know, you went to work, you got a house, you had babies. That was life, and that's still very much prevalent now. But I think it's shifting more to a 50-50 kind of balance.
Yeah.
Because of not only the influence of things like YouTube, but the freedom that gives you to be who you are, and whatever it is that you're passionate about, you can make into a business. You can share with people. You're going to influence people. You know, being an influencer is a thing now that I guess used to exist, but in a very different format. It's open to everyone now.
Yeah. And do you think that is to do with like the ability of social media to give people, the average person, a loud enough voice to reach people? Because before that would have been really difficult to do. A lot of people gathered their information on the world and all that stuff from either big people in the community, because they couldn't leave the community because it was impossible to, or writers, which were usually academic people. So there was a lot of this sway towards this kind of like person who would be held up, and the average person wouldn't really get a voice. You'd have to work really hard to get to that point. But now it's kind of like every person can have a voice that can be quite loud.
Yeah, definitely. I think it allows, it just equalises the field. Everyone can get there. It's not, there's no one that couldn't make a name for themselves and have a voice and influence other people. And it was interesting, actually, Peter McKinnon, do you know who he is? Yeah, prevalent name on YouTube. And he actually did a collaboration recently.
He's a magician.
Magician?
Yeah. He worked with The Illusionist for a long time.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he made their videos.
See, interesting enough. Like, you can, the internet allows you to switch. I've only ever known him as a photographer and videographer.
Yeah, he's really good. Yeah, he did a lot. Do you know Adam Wilbur?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know Adam Wilber. He did a lot of he did all of his fire videos and stuff like that. He was. Do you remember that video we did for me to become? Yeah, that was to replace Peter McKinnon.
Oh right.
So
okay.
he left Illusionist, and then that was the role that would have been
Imagine
filled.
you were the new Peter McKinnon.
Yeah, but that video was one near Peter McKinnon.
We'll stick a link to that in the show notes or whatever it is that you do with podcasts.
It's not a bad video.
It's a pretty good video. It's fine. It holds up.
It's not as good as Peter McKinnon's stuff though.
No. But anyway, to come back to my point, he recently did a collaboration with a much smaller YouTuber who had something like 3,000 views. But his point was that you don't have to have a huge following or anything.
Yeah.
But the whole collaboration was about this idea that you can have a big impact as anyone, whoever you are. You put something out there, you can impact a person. You can change someone's worldview. You can change someone's life, their perspective, anything.
It's not about the numbers, is it?
It's not about the numbers, and
this
it's
is
not
a big thing I'm learning, in particular with my work, because obviously I work on a mental health unit, and my approach is very much like, if I can have a profound effect on just one person, if one person can leave the ward, whether it's me or us as a team, but if someone can leave the ward and they've changed their lifestyle to be better, they leave the ward and they don't have any mental health issues again, all that stuff, then that's enough of a change for me to warrant doing the job. And I think that's lost on a lot of people, that kind of
I definitely
idea.
think it is. Yeah.
Most people care about how many views they're getting rather than how profound their message is, or how much of an impact they have, or how even just making someone laugh. You know, it's about how many people are watching.
And this is similar for me as well. Like, this is only recently something that's I'm trying to put more attention into, is this idea that you don't have to change everyone's life. You know, impact is impact, no matter what scale it's at.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's really where the internet should have taken us. I feel like we've veered off path a bit, and everyone's become obsessed with the numbers game. But hopefully that's swinging back round, and people are going to start to realise that it's a tool for improvement. And if every person does something that improves one other person's life, that's the whole world changed. It's small scale, but that's what works.
That is a recent thing that I felt about Home Tree. And the reason that I felt that way about Home Tree recently was because Chasta, Jareth's mum, was showing, because she works in the crisis team.
Yeah. And
she was showing one of my colleagues those videos. And they were like, that's been something that's stuck with me. For some reason, even if I don't show people the videos, for some reason, they're like, oh, you know Luke, yeah, here's the videos he made when he was 16. And it's like, okay, those are things that people find entertaining enough to when they think of me, they think of that.
Yeah.
And then they go back and they watch it. And they have rewatch value, clearly, because they keep showing people. And that's kind of like the same thing, you know? Like, it's not a massive impact. It's not it's not like a revelation or anything, but it's just a bit of fun for like 5 minutes.
Yeah. And that's the point. Is it doesn't matter if it's 5 minutes or 5 years. Like, you've had an impact. Something you have done has impacted someone else's life in a positive way. And it's definitely something I'm trying to get back into. I'm exploring like spirituality and the whole Buddhist thing as well at the moment. And that is a big part of that is, you know, being in service to other people. And so I'm sort of looking at, okay, what are the little ways each day I could be doing something to just, doesn't have to be anything big, you know, helping someone with something. Yeah.
And is that coming from, so all of these comments we've just said, they are coming from a point, and this is a conversation I've had with Izzy a few times, where there's no true altruism. And do you agree with that? So every good deed that you do for someone else has at least some effect on yourself, positive effects. So therefore, it's egotistical in nature.
Yeah.
But does that take away from the from the good deed? It doesn't. I don't think it does.
I definitely don't think it takes away from the good deed.
No.
The idea.
It's true though, isn't it? It's true that there's no true altruism. Don't you think?
I think so. I think regardless of, even if you do something that you suffer for to improve someone else's life, there's a reason that you've chosen to do that. There is something going back on you. But I definitely don't think that's a bad thing, because you're giving positivity and you're receiving it. It's a win-win. There's nothing wrong with everyone winning.
Yeah, and I think that's something that when I have these conversations with people that disagree, it tends to be, the conversation is about, well, if you're doing something selfish for a selfish reason, I don't like using the word selfish because I think it's misleading because it has negative connotations. Mm-hmm. But if you're doing it for your own, for something, a positive effect in you, then it's bad. It's not truly good, and therefore the deed is outdone, basically. But I just think that if you do something that makes someone else's day better, it doesn't matter whether you've benefited from that or not. The deed is still a good deed. Mm-hmm. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah,
it's just for me. It astonishes me that people think that having a positive effect on you takes away from that.
Yeah,
almost like there's a cost, like a transaction. It's not transactionary. And
this is the thing within, like, again, to swing it back to YouTube, you see certain people on YouTube will do something like, there's one guy who had a video where him and his sort of friends went around and they gave out free hamburgers to homeless people. And you get the backlash of, oh, he's doing it for views, he's doing it for this and that, and it's all selfish and you shouldn't do it for that. But at the same time, he's done something good for the community and he has a big platform in which he is encouraging other people to do something positive.
Yeah.
Why does it matter that he may have got views, or if he's only doing it for that? Like, the end of the day is positive has happened in 3 different places there.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, I personally see myself as a selfish person. I will always put myself first. But that doesn't necessarily mean anything negative for someone else. You know, I will usually, if I'm doing something self-serving and I need someone else to help me in whatever capacity with that, great. If I can do something that helps them, that helps me, where's the harm there? I've never understood.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the thing that I have is that that's true freedom. So if you have the freedom to make the choice of, even if you choose not to do anything good for other people, that's fine. If all of your acts are selfish, that's fine. As long as you're not doing harm, then it doesn't. To me, it doesn't. Like, I wouldn't necessarily be friends with someone like that, but they can have their worldview and they can exist on that premise. You know, like, that's fine by me. Like, I think that there's a big shift in mentality to if someone's selfish, then they're unkind and they're not, and they don't care, or, you know, but they have. People are more complex than that.
Yeah, I mean, not everyone wants to save the world. This is definitely something I've bashed heads with people on. Is I've never been interested in saving the world. I'm happy to do good deeds where I see them, but I'm not going out of my way to travel to Africa to build homes, to do this, to do that. I want to get through my life and look after myself, make sure I get through, make sure the people around me are happy. The way I see it, that's an overall plus in the world. I haven't done any harm to anyone. I haven't done any particular good, except maybe in my close circle, but that would be considered selfish in a very negative way, I think, by a lot of people. If you tell someone, you know, I'm not particularly interested in doing these kind of things. Most people aren't. A lot of, you know, you've got people that do want to go out and they really champion these causes, but most people in their day-to-day lives are just trying to get by from day to day, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No. I agree with that.
And I think also people are far too quick to try and look after other people before looking after themselves.
And that's something I have an opinion on very strongly, actually. I think that when they do that, when they look after someone else to the detriment of their own health or their own psychological well-being or their own, or you know, they're willing to sacrifice their job or something like that to help someone, usually it ends up with both of the people getting into a worse state. And I think that in order to look after someone else effectively, you have to look after yourself first. Absolutely. And I think that's the same in relationships as well. If we're going to talk about relationships, if you are constantly worried about the other person, worried about their happiness, and you're sacrificing things constantly for their happiness, that builds up resentment. There's a lot of resentment there, and then eventually that will just end up in a big, like, horrible mess. Whereas if you are like, okay, no, I'm not gonna. If you spend the first few months of the relationships like being like, I'm going to look after myself, and I want you to look after yourself, and then we're gonna have lovely times in between. But like, you know, I'm gonna do my own thing for a bit. Eventually, what happens is that you have respect for each other, and you end up looking after yourself first. But then when they need your help, you can look after them. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Whereas if you're constantly like saying, "No, I'll look after you, I'll look after you, I'll look after you," then you build up resentment.
I think a good analogy for it is you're both glasses. You can either empty your glass into theirs to try and help them, which is just going to empty yours, or you can fill your glass to the point that it's overflowing into theirs. Like,
that's a good that's a really good analogy. I like that.
By doing that, you're not losing anything. You're still helping them, but you're not taking away from yourself first.
Yeah.
You have to. If you're not in a good position and you start trying to give to everyone else, then all that's going to happen is you're going to come down rather than coming up.
Yeah. I agree with that. And I think that the culture at the moment, the society, it doesn't really allow for that much either, because you're always put on, like, I think most people now these days are on the back foot in terms of money, jobs, all of that stuff. So if you are sacrificing stuff, you tend to be sacrificing quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely.
And I don't think sacrifice is a bad thing, but too much sacrifice is certainly a bad thing.
Yeah, and again, it's at the expense. It's choosing when to sacrifice and how to sacrifice.
Yeah, especially if someone isn't willing. If you're sacrificing yourself for someone else who is asking for help but then isn't willing to take the help, that's the worst position to be in, because you're always sacrificing more. I mean, using the glass analogy, say you keep filling their glass up, but their glass has a hole in the bottom. There's no way you can help them, and you're just emptying your glass up.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's...
And you can't fix that hole. They have to fix that hole.
Yeah. It's difficult, isn't it? But I think that a lot of these, like, kind of mentalities, a lot of this idea about being not almost a savior complex and not understanding people who have egoism as maybe their central worldview, like you said you do. I think there's a lack of thinking about the complexity of that worldview, and they just think, okay, they think of themselves first and other people second, but they don't go into the nuance of it.
No.
And think that it's entirely selfish, rather than being just like, you know what, I can do better service to my friends and my family if I'm good myself.
No, people are very quick to brand good and bad, and that's that.
Yeah. And I guess that's the nature of this podcast for me, is trying to figure out where I stand on these things and trying to develop my understanding of it so that I can, you know, in the future, this whole podcast is a very egotistical, personal journey thing that I want to share with people, because I think that wisdom in particular is something that people don't really strive for at the moment. And I think that it's, to make good decisions in life, you need to have a good understanding of the options available to you. And
this in itself, you say it's an egotistical thing because you're looking to improve your own knowledge, but then that's filling your cup to fill someone else's cup by improving your own knowledge, your own understanding, your own empathy.
By doing it in a public domain.
But even not just on a personal level, by growing yourself, you are going to have more available to the people around you.
Yeah,
and so it's exactly that principle of it's selfish, but it's selfish in a way that helps everyone else anyway.
Yeah.
So is it selfish?
Yeah. Exactly.
I like that.
That's rounded it off quite nicely.
Let's put it round. How are we doing for time?
We're just on time. So, final words. So I'm going to say the final word. Well, we can share the final words, but I'll start. This conversation has been quite for the first podcast. I'm quite happy with it. I feel like definitely I understand your points about freedom and like the understanding of being independent. I get that, and it's something that I've thought about, and I haven't given much depth to it. And this conversation, so I kind of deepened my thoughts on it a little bit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, in the sense of, like, you know, like not being part of a structure and not having that accountability and the responsibility and the fear of loss, that was a big thing that I was kind of like didn't really put two and two together, and it's really interesting.
We've strayed so far from that initial.
We have.
We're in a completely different place. But
we are, but it's all interlinked. You know, that fear of loss, and then having that fear of loss, and then trying to account for it in what you've done is about egoism, and building up yourself and looking into self-development and stuff like that, and then using that in order to help other people eventually. You know, that it all links together. Yeah, and I think that definitely that cup analogy is going to be something that sticks. Where did you get that from?
That literally popped into my head.
That's a brilliant
I'm going to make an analogy. I don't know what it is, and then that came out. So
it's a solid analogy.
I'm going to put that on I don't know, postcard or something.
Do you know what? That's going to be something that I think about whenever I think about self-development, or like my looking after myself first. That's going to be, we've got the company now. That's going to be something that I keep. So yeah, your final words.
My final words. This has been great. We've definitely gone way off topic.
That's fine.
But I think this is what you're doing is good. And I think if you can get some interesting people on here, you're going to just keep filling that cup.
Fill the cup up.
Fill the cup up.
Until I'm overflowing.
Until you're overflowing. We're getting some weird stuff now.
Alright. Thank you very much.
Thank you very